Find mom.
At 1 a.m., my 6-year-old granddaughter called me in tears, urgently pleading. Caught off guard by the suddenness of it all, I listened intently. My daughter had been married for 7 years, and this was the first time such an alarming situation had arisen. The urgency in my granddaughter's voice indicated that something serious had occurred. "Where's Dad?" I asked, trying to soothe her trembling voice. But what she revealed next left me utterly speechless. A few years after my husband's passing, I had been living alone, finding solace in the weekly visits from my neighbor's granddaughter, Mia. Every Saturday, my daughter and son-in-law would bring their family over to spend time with me.
Hi, Grandma.
Mia, who turned 6 this year, has an affectionate personality. As soon as I open the front door, she greets me with a smile and hugs. My daughter Olivia and her husband Michael also find her endearing, and we all watch over her with smiles. My daughter got married 7 years ago. I vividly remember the moment when she blushed and shyly introduced Michael to me. After a brief conversation, I sensed that although he was reserved, his gentle demeanor would surely make him cherish my daughter. I wholeheartedly supported their marriage. Soon after, they had a child, and my daughter and son-in-law's life seemed blissful. They kindly considered even my solitary living situation. How wonderful it is to see Olivia happy. However, that peaceful life was not destined to last forever. Little did I know that I would soon be entangled in an unimaginable event. The first sign of trouble came on a Saturday. When my daughter and granddaughter visited as usual, their expressions were unusually somber.
Michael couldn't make it again today due to work.
She furrowed her brows, her smile strained. It was true, my daughter and granddaughter had been visiting more frequently, but I hadn't seen Michael in a long time. Does she feel lonely without her husband? I entertained such casual thoughts until that fateful moment after lunch. Olivia stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, helping me wash dishes. And then, I saw it, the shocking sight that made my eyes widen.
"What happened there?"
I blurted out, catching Olivia off guard. She quickly concealed her arm. The fresh burn marks on the inside of her arm were unmistakable.
It's just a cooking mishap.
"But how could you get injured while cooking?"
Really, it's nothing. Please don't make a fuss.
"But I can't ignore such a severe burn."
Despite my persistence, Olivia stubbornly insisted it was nothing and eventually fled the living room. Her behavior was far from ordinary, leaving me deeply unsettled. I approached my granddaughter, who had been playing there. "Hey, has something happened to Mom lately?" Mia hesitated, her gaze wandering, and then she looked down and spoke softly.
Mom and Dad have been arguing a lot lately.
Though still young, her words were enough to convey the gravity of the situation. It seemed that my daughter's husband was somehow involved in their somber demeanor. Later, when Olivia returned, I tried once more. "Has something happened with Michael?"
It's really nothing. Please don't worry.
Yet, she remained evasive, leaving me with lingering anxiety. Feeling restless day by day, 2 weeks passed, and it was finally the weekend.
Grandma, I want a kid's cell phone.
As soon as Mia arrived at my place, she energetically made her request. It was unusual for such a well-behaved Mia to ask for something, and I was initially surprised. However, when I checked the calendar, it all made sense. You see, Mia's birthday was just a few weeks away. But Mia is only in 1st grade. Is she too young for a cell phone? Despite my reservations, my genuine desire as a grandmother was to grant her wish. As I pondered my response, Olivia, who seemed to read my thoughts, calmly spoke up.
I'll chip in half. So can we buy it for her? It comes with GPS, which is quite convenient.
According to my daughter's explanation, although the kid's cell phone was named as such, it didn't connect to the internet. It was designed solely for communication. Many parents provided their young children with these phones for emergencies. Well, if that's the case, let me buy it for her. Relieved by her response, I promptly visited the cell phone store that day and gifted Mia the kid's cell phone. I registered Maya and my daughter's phone numbers as a trial, and Mia was overjoyed.
Thank you, Grandma. I'll take good care of it.
Seeing her bright expression after so long, I felt a sense of relief. Little did I know that those feelings would soon vanish.
Keep this a secret from Michael. He's strict about these things.
Whispering beside Mia, my daughter shared this confidential information. Startled, I shifted my gaze to Olivia, who wore a solemn expression as she stared at the kid's cell phone. Has something happened after all? I couldn't help but ask, given her intense demeanor. However, my daughter remained evasive, shaking her head weakly.
No. Mom doesn't need to worry. Everything's fine.
Her resolute refusal to say more left me speechless. What on earth is happening in Olivia's family? And then, on a day when anxiety and mystery had been building up, a decisive event finally occurred. It was 5 days after I'd bought Mia the kid's cell phone, late at night. The ringing of the phone on my bedside table jolted me awake. Rubbing my tired eyes, I checked the time. It was 1 a.m. Who could be calling at such an unreasonable hour? Still groggy, I pressed the answer button.
Grandma, find Mom.
Suddenly, a tense voice pierced my ears, jolting me awake. I checked the caller ID. It was Mia. Her personality and urgent tone left no doubt that this wasn't a prank call.
Where's Dad? Mia, what happened over there?
Considering the past few months of Olivia's somber expressions, I wondered if this might be an emergency. Mia, still sobbing on the other end of the line, uttered shocking words.
Dad hit Mom and took her somewhere.
Wait, what?
As Mia's cries echoed, darkness enveloped my surroundings. Clearly, there was a serious issue between Michael and Olivia.
I'm coming right away. Stay put.
Leaving the phone connected, I rushed out of the house. I didn't know the details, but one thing was certain, my daughter and granddaughter were in danger. 15 minutes later, I arrived at Olivia's home. The living room had transformed into a scene of devastation.
What is all this?
Toppled photo frames and shattered dishes littered the floor. It was evident that someone had wreaked havoc. Stunned, I turned to Mia, who tearfully handed me the kid's cell phone.
Mom said something to Dad, and they got into a fight.
As the video played on the screen, I was once again rendered speechless. There was Michael, grabbing Olivia, shouting,
"You probably look down on me too, don't you?"
It seemed that Mia, who had been asleep, woke up to their argument and secretly recorded the entire incident. Furious, Michael had taken Olivia somewhere. The unbelievable footage filled me with seething anger. I had allowed Olivia's marriage for her happiness. If I had known this would happen, I would never have entrusted Olivia to Michael in the first place. Unforgivable. How could he do this to my precious daughter? I'll definitely get Olivia back and make Michael reflect on his actions. Determined, I felt Mia's tears as she suddenly took my hand.
Grandma, look, Mom said to give this to Grandma if anything happens.
Looking down, I saw a single key gleaming in her small palm. Later, after explaining the situation to a relative in the neighborhood, I took custody of Mia and, clutching the kid's cell phone, headed to a certain mountain. As my daughter had explained, the kid's cell phone was equipped with GPS, allowing us to track the registered cell phone's location. Fortunately, Olivia still had the phone with her when she was taken away, making it traceable. Guided by the GPS, I arrived at this location. Navigating the pitch-black mountain path, I followed the cell phone's light. Faint voices, as if from an argument, reached my ears. "Olivia. Please be safe." I hurried toward the source of the voices, my heart filled with prayers. As I emerged into a clearing among the trees, I couldn't contain my excitement when I saw two figures.
Olivia!
Mom!
My daughter turned, her long hair firmly grasped by Michael. It was evident that he had forcibly brought her here.
Wait! Why are you here?
Clearly, he hadn't expected my arrival. Taking advantage of his surprise, Olivia pushed him with all her might. His grip loosened, and she sprinted straight toward me. But as I embraced her, my shock grew. Olivia's right cheek was swollen and red. Evidently, Michael had harmed her. My anger surged, and I stepped forward, glaring at him.
How dare you treat a woman so horribly?
Olivia's always mouthy. She's the problem.
It's despicable to take your frustration out on her just because you lost your job.
What? Why are you saying that?
Facing a dumbfounded Michael, I recalled everything that had led me here. The key Mia had handed me earlier was from Olivia's desk drawer. When I opened it, I found a multitude of documents, with a handwritten letter placed on top.
I'm sorry for keeping silent. Everything is documented here.
The letter began with unbelievable revelations. According to Olivia, Michael's behavior had changed about 5 months ago. He returned home late, intoxicated, and spent weekends away. His demeanor had shifted, and he became increasingly aggressive. Initially, Olivia attributed it to work stress and tried to talk to him, but Michael's anger escalated, and he began physically hurting her. The burn on her arm was also inflicted by him. As I read Olivia's letter aloud, I fixed my gaze on Michael, who wore a bitter expression. "You were fired from the company 6 months ago, right?"
Yeah, well, I quit because there was no future there.
"Don't lie. You embezzled company funds, and that's why you were let go." Michael stared at me, wide-eyed, shocked by my words. As it turns out, Olivia had noticed Michael's increasingly odd behavior and mustered the courage to call the company to inquire about his usual demeanor. There, she learned the truth. Michael had been fired, and the reason was shocking. The company had shown leniency, allowing him to return the embezzled $35,000 in full, which prevented any legal action. However, Michael took advantage of this situation, keeping the truth hidden from my daughter. However, burdened by substantial debt and with nowhere to turn for advice, he grew increasingly frustrated. Eventually, he began directing that stress toward Olivia. "Really, you should have consulted me from the beginning." As I gently touched my daughter's reddened cheek, she looked down, seemingly embarrassed, and tears welled up in her eyes.
I'm sorry. I thought this was a family issue. I didn't want to cause any trouble for Mom.
Olivia's strong sense of responsibility became a double-edged sword. She tried to handle Michael's problems all by herself. Knowing everything, my daughter attempted to avoid upsetting him as much as possible. She discussed the issue of his dismissal and the debt when he was in a good mood, but despite her efforts, the situation escalated into the current turmoil. However, anticipating this possibility, She had prepared a summary of the situation in a drawer and entrusted Mia with the key, just in case. In hindsight, even buying Mia a kid's cell phone was likely a precaution for unforeseen events. At that moment, relieved that my daughter was safe, I gently touched my chest. But as Michael looked at us, he began to tremble nervously.
She looks down on me, so I had to teach her a lesson. I haven't done anything wrong.
His face turned crimson as he pointed at Olivia, revealing everything. His incoherent words left me utterly exasperated.
Why on earth did you bring her all the way to this mountain?
I just wanted to leave her here and make her reflect.
The one who needs reflection is you. Losing your job was your own doing.
Shut up. Old lady, keep quiet. Don't define me.
Suddenly, Michael charged toward us, perhaps rattled by my accurate assessment. I shielded my daughter, but in the next moment, distant police sirens blared, and officers arrived swiftly, apprehending him.
What? The police?
I'm not a fool. I reported this a long time ago. As Olivia trembled, crouched down from the sudden turn of events, I gently stroked her back while delivering a cold response. When the situation had come to light, I had promptly contacted the police. Although I was initially instructed to wait, I couldn't bear it and decided to participate in the search, with the condition that the call would remain connected. In other words, everything had been thoroughly reported to the police.
What's going on? Stop it. I haven't done anything wrong.
Seeing Michael struggle futilely, I looked down at him and spat out my words.
Give up. You'll have plenty of time to reflect in prison.
He seemed to realize that resisting was pointless. His shoulders twitched momentarily under my stern gaze, and he slumped, drained of all strength. Subsequently, Michael was taken away by the police, arrested for assaulting my daughter. The video evidence of the violence ensured that he wouldn't be leaving prison anytime soon. Olivia divorced him and demanded $20,000 in compensation. Even if he were released, the accumulated debts, including the embezzled funds, would create a financial nightmare for him. On the other hand, I now live with Olivia and Mia. We're 3 women, and we plan to enjoy our time together.
How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time in the next video.
We're living with the elderly. This is to be expected.
Exactly. This is like a punishment game. Just a little mischief. There's no need to get all worked up. So that's the attitude. Understood. If you two are like that, then I have something in mind too. My name is Helly. I'm living alone in the city now, away from my parents' home. It takes about an hour by car, so I can't go there often. It's a question of whether I can go once a year. Actually, I couldn't go home last New Year's because I was busy with work. But this year, I can go home after a long time. It's been a while since I got married 2 years ago and saw my brother and his wife, who live with my mother, at my parents' house. So I bought the souvenirs requested by them and drove happily. I'm sure I'll have a great New Year's holiday. That's what I thought, but what's going on with this? But when I got home, things seemed off somehow. The air seemed stagnant even from outside the house. It was as dark as if the house had been abandoned for years. The atmosphere inside became even stronger after I entered. From what I could see, it seemed that my mother's lack of energy was one factor. My mother was always smiling and energetic. I watched them for a while, and it seemed that my mother was doing all the cleaning and cooking. Mom, are you okay? Can I help you? It's okay, Helly. You've come home, so relax or something. You must be tired from the long drive. My mother said that and wouldn't let me help her. But she was also doing heavy housework, like carrying heavy things. Yet, my brother Rick and sister-in-law Sadie ignored my mother. Even though my mother was working in front of them, they were playing games together. They even asked to bring tea to my working mother, which was absurd. Hey Mom, are you really okay? Should I say something to my brother? There might be things that are difficult for you to say to them, right? It's really okay. You don't need to worry about anything. More importantly, since you've come home, take it easy. Your bed is prepared in the guest room, so you can take a nap if you want. But even when I asked her quietly, my mother didn't say anything. So I thought there was nothing I could do. What surprised me was during dinner. In the living room, my mother's specialty dishes were lined up. Among them were many of my favorite dishes. Every single one brought back nostalgic flavors and lifted my spirits. Wow. Thank you. I'm happy because it's been a while since I had your home-cooked meals. But my mother wasn't in the living room. Surprisingly, my mother didn't come into the living room from the kitchen. Mom, what's wrong? Why don't you come over here? If there's anything else you need to prepare, I'll help you. I went to the kitchen to check, and there was my mother, eating while standing alone in the cold kitchen, without even a chair. Why aren't you coming over here, Mom? Why are you eating here? It's nothing, just the usual. Besides, I made a lot, so make sure you eat properly. I don't think my cooking skills have declined. My mother said that sadly. Yet in the living room, my brother and sister-in-law were eating without caring about my mother. They even chatted while watching TV. What's going on? Rick, Sadie. Why is Mom eating in the kitchen? Isn't that strange?
Mom has her reasons. You wouldn't understand since you don't live with us.
That's right. For example, when you get old, your knees hurt, so it's hard to sit in a chair. You wouldn't understand unless you lived together, but sometimes it's easier to stand. Sometimes it's harder to sit. That's what my brother and sister-in-law said. While I thought their attitude was strange, I couldn't say anything. Indeed, it had been 2 years since I last saw my mother. I hadn't been in touch much, so there might be some circumstances. So I backed down at that time. But as I watched carefully, my mother's behavior was indeed strange. To be precise, both my brother's family and my mother's behavior were strange. They didn't try to talk to my mother. They behaved as if my mother wasn't there. It even felt like my mother was only visible to me. But my brother and sister-in-law had only been married for 2 years. They had been living together since they got married, so they rarely had a chance to be alone. So maybe they were still in their honeymoon phase? Maybe they wanted to immerse themselves in their own world? It was possible to think that way. And normally, I wouldn't interfere with the frequency of their conversations since I didn't live with them. Thinking that, I went to bed that day with a somewhat uncomfortable feeling, but what surprised me was what happened afterward. It was when I suddenly wanted to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and woke up. My mother was sleeping in the cold hallway in front of the entrance. She had many blankets on her, but today was an unusually cold day. Perhaps because a severe cold wave was hitting, my mother was shivering from the cold. "Mom. What's wrong? Why are you sleeping here?" "It's nothing, just the usual. You don't have to worry about me." "That's not okay." Even though we don't live together, I couldn't stay silent. I took my mother to the guest room where I was sleeping, saying that it was late at night. And the two of us slept in a warm room. And the next morning, I immediately asked my brother and sister-in-law about what happened yesterday. "Why don't you talk to Mom? Make Mom do all the housework. And why is Mom eating while standing in the kitchen and sleeping in the hallway?" But even though I was angry, my brother just smirked. Instead, my sister-in-law said something outrageous. "Well, because she always causes trouble. It's punishment, right?"
Right.
"Punishment? What do you mean?" "There's punishment when you accumulate points for causing trouble. Eating in the kitchen with 5 points, doing housework alone with 10 points, and sleeping in the hallway with 20 points. She has accumulated 200 points, so she just needs to endure a few more days." "What do you mean? Isn't that too much? And what do you mean by causing trouble?" When I asked in a hurry, my sister-in-law answered casually. "Well, for example, the taste of the food isn't to our liking. This is the worst for us who both work. It's really disappointing to come home looking forward to a meal and find it not delicious." "Huh? Can't you just cook for yourselves?"
Helly, you don't get it. We're working outside, you know. Cooking is tough.
"That's right, Helly. Since your mother doesn't work, she should do the cooking. It's annoying to have someone at home who isn't productive."
Yeah, that's right. It's a good status to be at home alone while we're working, right?
"Brother, isn't that a rude way to say it? Mom raised us single-handedly since our dad passed away. She worked and did all the housework to support us."
Huh. That's just a parent's obligation, isn't it?
"Exactly. That's right." My brother and sister-in-law laughed out loud. I watched them and realized that there was no point in talking to them anymore. So I said this. "Oh, that's how it is. Understood. Then I'll fulfill my duty as a daughter too." With that, I packed my mother's belongings without waiting for their response. My mother's belongings were much fewer than when I last saw them 2 years ago, and that alone made me feel sad. But I held back my tears, packed up, and put my apologetic mother in my car. My brother and his wife watched us with smirks.
Are you taking the nuisance away? Great.
"This house belongs to us. Rick. Let's have fun from now on." Ignoring the two of them, I drove away and took my mother home. And a few days later, it was the end of the vacation and the first day of work. I received a frantic call from my brother.
Hey. Nothing's arrived yet. What's going on?
"You did that to Mom. Did you think I'd continue to tolerate you just like before? Do you understand your position, big brother?"
What did you say? I haven't done anything wrong to you.
"Indeed, you haven't done anything to me. But you've done terrible things to my mother. Think carefully before you speak." I said that and hung up on my brother. Immediately after that, I received a call from my sister-in-law too. Hey. I just checked my email. What do you mean by cutting ties with us? Explain. Explain? Yes. What does it mean to cut ties with us? Well, cutting ties means ending the relationship. Sister-in-law, how many years have you been in the workforce? Don't you understand such a simple meaning? Are you okay? What? That's not what I meant. Don't make fun of me. Why should our company be cut off? Are you serious about that? If so, I am worried if you are okay as a human being rather than as a working adult. Do you remember what happened a few days ago? After saying that, I hung up on my sister-in-law too. Actually, I'm currently working for a major corporation. My brother is one of the freelance writers occasionally commissioned by the company. As much as he's my brother, there are plenty of other writers to replace him. And my sister-in-law is the daughter of a subcontractor company's president, which our department deals with. Honestly, cutting ties with them was easy. After handling their calls, I took a deep breath to calm down a bit. Then, I sent them both the same message simultaneously. You both have done terrible things to my mother. So I will fight to protect my mother as her daughter. Also, my mother's enemies are my enemies. I won't show any mercy. Besides, the reason you two met in the first place was because my brother saw the president's daughter who came to our company for work. My brother was just here to get work from me. Despite such a background, how can you think it's okay to be so disrespectful? I don't want to say this, but I tried to accommodate your relationship from the beginning of your meeting. But that ends today. They must have seen the message immediately and hurriedly replied.
I haven't forgotten. That's why I have been nicer to you as my little sister than anyone. I even cleaned the guest room for New Year's. You think I can trust Mom with that?
That's right. I even prepared your favorite dishes for you. Have you forgotten that favor? After reading their messages, I replied to them again. You can't trust Mom? You prepared? Who do you think you are to my mother, who raised us with care? You're both pathetic. Feel the shame. In the end, I stopped giving work to my brother. There are plenty of people who are more meticulous and quicker at their work than my brother. Without the sibling connection, there's no need to favor him. A colleague who didn't know about my relationship with my brother once asked me something like this. Hey Helly, this Rick, the writer, hasn't been active lately, right? Has he not taken any of our jobs? Yeah, he said he didn't like our work, so he told us not to assign him any. So I guess we can just leave him alone. Huh. He's a weird guy. Even though he doesn't have that much skill. Honestly, can he really afford to cut ties with our company? I know, right? He misses deadlines, acts high and mighty, and for some reason, he's really pushy in price negotiations. I'll be relieved if we don't have to work with him anymore. The evaluation of my brother from a third-party perspective was just like this. My brother said the other day that 90% of his income comes from our company. So he must be in trouble now. With that attitude and skill, he probably won't find a new job easily. Well, he can struggle all he wants. As for my sister-in-law, apparently, what she did to my mother got back to her father, and he gave her a stern talking to. I received a hurried call from her father.
I'll disown my daughter. So please, let's keep our relationship as it was. If there are any other conditions, I'll accept them.
He's the president of a company that's related to ours, even if it's a subcontractor. It wouldn't be right to ignore what he said after that. So I laid out my conditions. Then, please make them leave the house right now. And sincerely apologized to my mother. Of course, you'll need to pay appropriate compensation too. It seems the president immediately conveyed that to my sister-in-law. But she refused. Why should I apologize? Living with that old woman is just stressful. Dad should be more assertive too. Pathetic. Because of that attitude, I decided not to restore the relationship. I feel sorry for the president, but it's their own fault. This person is just like my brother and sister-in-law, who started giving us unreasonable quotes as soon as they got married. They negotiate prices aggressively but are sloppy with deadlines and communication. If they weren't relatives, I would have cut ties with them a long time ago, so it's only fair that the person who raised such a sister-in-law should feel the consequences. There's no need for me to go out of my way to save them from the trouble they brought upon themselves. So, in the end, my brother and sister-in-law were driven into a corner. According to friends from the area, they seem to have left the house without anyone noticing. That house originally accommodated our parents, my brother, and me, a spacious house for 4 people. Living there, just the 2 of them, must have been costly in terms of utilities. According to those friends, they were spotted in an apartment without even basic amenities like a bath or toilet. It seems they're really struggling without jobs. But it's no longer my concern. Even if they were to apologize now, I have no intention of forgiving them whatsoever. On the other hand, unlike those 2, my mother has been regaining her spirits. Sleeping on a soft bed in my house, eating warm meals in a cozy place. She doesn't have to worry about household chores, and she can relax and sleep in on weekends. After continuing this lifestyle for a few months, she has become lively again, just like before. Back then, I was also being foolish. I thought your brothers were right, and I believed I was useless, so I thought I had to obey. Thank you for saving me, Helly. I'm the one who should apologize for realizing it so late and causing you pain. From now on, please tell me immediately if anything happens. I want to make up for the lost time and make you happy. It seems my mother has recently made friends in the neighborhood. Although she says she finds the unfamiliar town enjoyable, she also enjoys strolling around. Seeing my mother enjoying herself like that is more than anything else. I am determined to repay my mother for raising me well. That's the strong resolve I've made. How did you like this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.